Bruce Friedman of Adult Site Broker, and welcome to Adult Site Broker Talk, where each week we interview one of the movers and shakers of the adult industry, and we give you a tip on buying and selling websites. This week we'll be speaking with Alison Boden, the Executive Director of the Free Speech Coalition, in part one of a two-part interview. Adult Site Broker is proud to announce the launch of our new website, Adult Site Broker 3.0, at adultsitebroker.com. The look and feel of the new site is nice and up-to-date and easier to navigate. The new site also has links to our affiliate program, ASB Cash, and our new blog. Speaking of ASB Cash, we've doubled our affiliate payouts. Now when you refer sellers or buyers to us at Adult Site Broker, you're going to receive 20% of our broker commission on any and all sales that result from that referral for life. You can either place a link to us on your site or refer buyers and sellers through an email introduction. ASB Cash is the first affiliate program for an adult website brokerage. Check out asbcash.com for more details and to sign up. Now let's feature our property of the week that's for sale at Adult Site Broker. We're proud to offer for sale a streaming network of sites for independent performers. Most of the traffic comes from North America. It's the Shopify of streaming video and offers turnkey streaming sites to content creators. Creators provide some information about their brand, choose a look and feel, upload their images and videos, and they launch their streaming site on the domain of their choice in minutes. The platform provides everything creators need, from customer support to payment processing, so creators can focus on managing their content and marketing their site. The platform can also generate revenue from ads on free content, as well as subscriptions to premium content. The platform uses AWS cloud technology to stream live and on-demand content around the world. The sale also includes a mainstream platform. The content is sold on a monthly subscription basis. The code was developed in-house by their team of engineers. This is a great opportunity to enter the exciting world of live streaming video for a modest cost. Platforms like this cost a lot more to build from scratch, only $540,000. Now time for this week's interview. My guest today on Adult Site Broker Talk is Alison Boden of Free Speech Coalition. Alison, thanks for being with us today on Adult Site Broker Talk.
Thanks for having me.
It's awesome. It took us a little while, but we finally got this scheduled, and I'm stoked. Now, Alison is a veteran adult entertainment industry exec, that's a mouthful, who served on the FSC's board of directors for over 3 years, including as its president, before taking on the role of executive director. Since starting her adult industry career in 2003, Alison has held a wide variety of marketing, technology, and leadership positions at companies like Adult Empire, Gamelink, Videobox, and Kink.com, where she was CEO. She also serves Pineapple Support as its board president. When do you sleep? Alison holds a bachelor's degree in sociology with a concentration in women's studies from the University of Pittsburgh. You can follow her on social media at Alison Boden. That's Alison with an L. She enjoys hiking, drinking wine, diving, and listening to podcasts. No doubt a steady diet of Adult Site Broker Talk. The Free Speech Coalition's mission is to protect the rights and freedoms of both the workers and businesses in the adult industry. Their organization functions as a resource, a leader, and a tool for the communities that they serve. They take pride in fighting to alleviate the social stigma, misinformation, and discriminatory policies that affect those who work in the adult industry. For more than 25 years, wow, they've been fighting and winning impossible battles from the Supreme Court to the ballot box and back again. How'd you like your commercial?
I'm impressed with us. Good job, Free Speech Coalition.
Alison, how did you get your start in this crazy industry?
Always a funny question.
So give me a funny answer.
I would say I started in college. As you mentioned, I went to the University of Pittsburgh and grew up in Pittsburgh. And that is a town that, it didn't have like a good vibrations the way you all did in the Bay Area or Toys in Babeland. like
Yeah.
they did in New York. And it felt to me like Pittsburgh really needed that kind of institution.
Okay.
So a really good friend of mine and I in college, we were like, let's open a store. How hard could it be? It was impossible, actually. And
Hmm.
this is amazingly still an issue that small retailers face 20 years later. But, zoning laws in
Yeah.
various cities, municipalities are basically like, well, you can be down by the river with the cockroaches and rats
Hmm.
or out by the highway, but that's it.
Yeah.
So, I did that for a little while and, graduated college, needed a real job, and just lucked out that Adult DVD Empire happened to be hiring someone to deal with their sex toys.
Hmm.
Kind of the dream job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of that's kind of where I started
Wow. So they were called Adult DVD Empire then.
back in those days. Yeah,
Makes sense.
2004. Yeah, I mean, I've never
Makes
seen so many DVDs, and probably never will again.
You will never again. What were hey man, I remember Betamaxes, okay, so I'm a lot older than you. What were the big issues that the industry was facing at that time?
I hate to say they were similar to now, but
I know,
I
huh?
do think, right? I do think that like there are some really common threads, right? Social acceptability of what we do, the way people think about us, while it definitely isn't ideal now, I would argue it was much worse back then,
Of
you
course.
know. And 20 years is an absurdly long amount of time, and I kind of can't even believe that I've been doing this long, but you know,
Tell me about it.
thinking right? Like thinking about, even being able to tell people what you did for a living. There was just so much judgment. It was really hard. And the way that sex workers were treated was, believe it or not, even worse. At that point, when I was working at Empire, that was when the FBI was doing 2257 inspections.
Yeah.
They came to us,
Oh, jeez.
helpfully located in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
So, that was really the big scary issue at the time. Kind of, what do we do about the secondary producer requirement? I remember
Mhm.
spending days, even though I was the sex toy person, I had to sit in front of a computer and like look through 2257 documentation and match IDs to paperwork just because
Lucky
we were,
you.
yeah, like afraid of, basically our business getting
Yeah.
destroyed.
Yeah.
Thankfully, FSC actually did solve that problem for the industry. So
Nice.
I guess it's sort of full circle in a way.
Yeah, they had an early, impact on you.
Exactly. I didn't even know it at the time.
Yeah, crazy. So you've held a lot of positions in the industry since then. How did you get from selling sex toys to CEO of Kink?
It was a circuitous path, as you might expect. So, sold sex toys at Empire, got recruited to come out to San Francisco and work with Gamelink.
Mhm.
And they needed some help with sex toys, but mostly they were looking for someone to run their editorial department. So
Hmm.
that was one of the fun jobs that I've had, which was interviewing porn stars. I
Yeah.
actually was the first person to interview Sasha Grey,
Yeah. Wow.
which was great fun. So
Yeah, yeah.
getting to know that part of the business, I had only really done toys before, so now I'm learning all about the stars and learning about video
Mhm.
and doing a lot of marketing work while I was at it. And then when I left Gamelink, I moved over to Videobox where they needed a marketing person.
Mhm.
Great. I can market. I guess that's a skill, right? So
It is.
I had no idea what I was doing at first, but I figured it out. I learned how to be a marketer. But in my spare time, I was still since back in high school. I taught myself to code, and I always
Ah.
kind of had a I don't know somewhere in the back of my mind. I was like, oh, I wish I could just do this for a job. Like marketing's fun, and making email newsletters is well, it's actually really a slog. But, it'd be cool to actually be building the websites that,
Mhm.
I'm working for.
Sure.
And eventually, after I left VideoBox, I started working for Kink because they were hiring an email marketing person. And
Interesting.
believe it or not, even to this day, email marketing often does require a fair bit of HTML coding.
Yeah,
Most,
it certainly does, and I always need help with it, by the way.
if you need somebody, reach out because it's a lot of
Okay.
tables. It's a lot of tables. So, doing that coding for Kink, running, I eventually became kind of their comms person. But I always in the back of my mind was like, well, one day I'm gonna do this for a real job. I'm gonna write code. And I mentioned that to a boss there, and they're like, well, why not just do it here? And so the head of technology there pulled me over to that department. I worked as a coder there for years,
Hmm.
and it was great. It was some of the best, most satisfying work I've done. And then, of course,
You do not come across to me as a coder who can sit in a room for days on end. You don't seem to be that type to me.
I guess I should take that as a compliment.
You should. You should.
Thank you. No, thank you. And I think that's part of the reason I ended up becoming management because, coding is fun, but you need somebody who can manage a bunch of other coders.
Right.
And so got promoted, was running the tech team, became the VP of tech. And when, Kink's founder, Peter, decided that he was going to
Hmm.
take some time and,
Right.
enjoy the spoils of having sold the San Francisco Armory and needed somebody to step in and run the company, he
Hmm.
picked me. So that was really, a lot of kind of like, sure, I went to college, but really all the skills that I got were self taught or kind of figured out on the job. And
Yeah.
I like to say I went from the email room to the CEO's office.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and it really helps to be running something when you know everyone's job. I
Yeah.
unfortunately don't have the the knowledge of everyone's job. I've been a little lazy that way. I actually have an HTML course that I one of these days, and I keep moving it back on my calendar that I'm going to go through because I really should learn it. And I'm going to, but yeah, it's really helpful to know what everyone does and how they do it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think the fact that I worked for the company for 7 years in a bunch of different roles before taking over was, I mean, really impactful on the way I ran the company because
Hmm.
knowing, how hard everyone's job is,
Yeah,
from having done it or sat next to them or having talked to them about it,
right.
it really does change your perspective.
Absolutely. So, as CEO of Kink, you really sought to modernize what at that point was a 20-year company. What was that like?
You know, it was a lot of fun, honestly. I think that it was a huge change moving out of the armory. We'd been there, I had worked there in that building, in that giant castle for years and
Yeah,
years,
yeah.
7.5, 8 years. And
That
so
was a cool place.
it was really amazing.
Hmm.
Although it also didn't have heat or air conditioning. So,
Oops.
pros and cons.
Well, San Francisco, you don't need air conditioning in San Francisco. That's for darn sure.
I don't know, Bruce. Climate change has made some pretty uncomfortable days, even in the Bay.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of the days when I lived in the Bay Area because what I remember is nobody had air conditioning then.
You didn't used to need it. Nowadays, there are a couple, even in the city itself, over 100 degrees, and that giant
Every once in a
stone
while.
building definitely
Oh yeah, boy, I
definitely
bet it can retain
holds on
heat.
to it.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
sure.
So
Well, I
moving out
remember
of
one time
the armory.
being at a jazz show in San Francisco, and it was just like really hot, and there was no air conditioning, and everyone was just dying.
Oh yeah, because you don't expect it in San Francisco at
Of
all.
course,
It's
of
like, wait,
course.
what's going on here? But kind of trying to move into a different building into one of like those sort of cool, startup-y brick exposed buildings in San Francisco, in
Yeah.
Soma, kind of changing are focused technologically.
Right.
I really benefited from having the support of the founder. I don't think I could have made the changes I did or moved the company forward in the ways that I was able to without his trust. So on the one
Sure.
hand, it was crazy and really difficult to kind of turn a giant cruise ship. You don't turn them on a dime, but
Hmm.
it was also just a real joy because I was surrounded by the absolute best human beings. Like my colleagues at Kink are
Yeah.
still, a close family.
Yeah, absolutely. Was Jesse Garza working there when you were there?
He sure was. Yeah,
Wow.
we worked together for a couple years.
So tragic. So tragic.
Mm,
Yeah, we just got the news
It's
a few days ago as we record this that Jesse sadly passed at a very young age, 39 years old.
incredibly
Yeah.
shocking and yeah, really
Yeah.
so sad.
So we saw him a couple weeks ago, and just like life, it's someone's gone before you even know it, and you don't even get a chance to say goodbye. It's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what were some of the changes that you were most proud of at Kink?
You know, I felt like when I was in the tech role, I was really excited because I was part of the team that rewrote the entire technology stack. So just built
Hmm.
a new website completely from scratch. Then when I, was running the company, now you're thinking about production and marketing
Hmm.
and, the accounting group. And I
Yep.
feel like, it was a really interesting change at the company at that moment because not only did we move out of the armory, but all of the producers prior to that, I think Kink may have been one of the last companies that actually had everybody on payroll.
Yeah.
So all the directors, all of the PAs, everyone was actually an employee of Kink.com.
Hmm.
And when Peter handed over the keys, he had also kind of moved everybody out. And so they're all kind of in their own new studios in 3 different cities and 3 different states.
Jeez,
So, yeah, so kind of
that had to be a bit of a challenge.
it was. And, I mean, Kink's known for its, really high standards in terms of consent and, you know, performer rights. And so
Hmm.
kind of coming up with a new way to approach that where we turned what used to be our talent department, right? So we would have people who would do intake and handle, models, bookings and things like that, but that's no longer what the company does. But I took one of those people and turned him into our talent advocate. And so this is someone whose entire
Cool.
job is to make sure that all of the producers, no matter where they are doing right by the performers and be
That's
an
very
independent,
that's
check on
very
that.
cool. That's very cool.
It really it felt great because I felt a little bit better about, oh, I can't like be there I can't just walk upstairs and check out a set the way I used to. But
Yeah.
A, we were working with people who I trusted deeply. And B,
Yep.
like having someone whose entire role is just to make sure performers are happy. I felt like, I was pretty proud of that. I felt good about that.
Hmm. Hey, it doesn't get better than that, right?
I mean, if it does, I would love to hear about it because I think everybody should definitely be doing as much as they can for the folks who, let's be honest, make all of the rest of us money.
Yeah, it seems like obviously in like in all businesses, the goal is to make money. And it seems to be that everything else kind of goes by the wayside. And to see that kind of emphasis being put on what's important to the performers, what's important to the employees, it's very rare, isn't it?
It used to be extremely rare. I've actually been really excited over the last couple of years. In that role, I got to talk to a lot of other, folks in leadership at other companies. And in
Hmm.
this role, certainly even more. And
Yeah.
I really think that there's been, in certain circumstances, a real fundamental shift toward understanding that, like, we really need to be careful and do a great job protecting the folks who are honestly the most vulnerable in our industry
Yeah.
because of the way that it works, right? Like,
Right.
you're just one performer and these are really
Hmm.
big companies. You don't want to lose work. And I think an understanding of that and sort of the power dynamics and the
Hmm.
way that, these sorts of things are actually a good business decision
Hmm.
has really I've seen some change and it's been positive.
How much do you think two factors have had to do with that? One being Me Too, okay,
Hmm.
and then the other thing being the advent of the fan sites.
I think they were both really significant in their own ways, right? So
Hmm.
I think Me Too was huge.
Yeah.
And it's really, I think, shocking the first time a company realizes that it did something wrong or there's an allegation that they can't
Hmm.
ignore.
Right.
And that's a really critical moment because they can either choose to like handle it head on and admit that, they should have done better and that they will do better and fix it,
Right.
or they can put on the blinders and
Hmm.
it forces them to make a choice. And
Yeah.
I'm pleased by how many made the right choice. And I think that had Me Too not happened, so many of these problems still would have been pushed under the rug,
Right.
and performers wouldn't have felt as empowered to say, "Hey, actually, this wasn't okay. What
Yeah.
happened to me?" So
Yeah.
enormous.
Absolutely right.
Not only that, you're right. OnlyFans changed the game. Now they don't,
Hmm.
they're not like, oh, well, I'm going to get blacklisted by this company. Now my career's over. They're making more in an afternoon on OnlyFans than they
Yep.
would on a 2-day shoot. So
They are.
they have no reason to work with companies that don't treat them extremely well.
Exactly. Well, the key is to get rid of the Ron Jeremys of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, has that been a fiasco, and I'm sure we haven't heard the
Wow.
last of it, unfortunately. It's a black
Unfortunately.
eye on our industry, which is the worst part of it because it all ends up in mainstream news.
It's incredible how one bad apple, and I hate using that phrase, but
No, it's okay.
those individual examples of bad actors
Hmm.
are where the media decides to look when they want to talk
Oh,
about the industry as a whole. So we all get painted with that
of
brush.
course, it's where they want to look.
And of course,
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, when you left Kink in 21, you could have stayed in the for profit sector and obviously done well considering your track record. How did you come to end up taking over at Free Speech Coalition?
well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
look, I mean, Allison, your reputation in this industry is phenomenal, and I'm going to say it if nobody else does.
I appreciate it, Bruce. I did have some offers, and
Sure.
they were tempting,
Right.
but in a way, having served on the board for a few years and knowing what it is free speech has been trying to do,
Hmm.
and having some thoughts that, like, I might be able to bring something new and maybe, you know, push things forward in a way that somebody who, a lot of the history of this organization has been that it's been run by executive directors who aren't from our industry, for better or worse.
Right.
And so I just thought, after 20 years in this industry, maybe I can bring a new energy,
Hmm.
do it my own way, and
Right.
really accomplish some stuff. So, I can always go back to the private sector, but the
Sure.
opportunity kind of arose when I was, because being CEO, it's pretty exhausting. I was like, oh, let me
Yeah.
take a couple months, take a nap. Um, but when the board approached me, when there was you know the former executive director left, we needed someone. I said, yeah, of course. I mean,
Hmm.
there's nothing else I could have done. It's
Interesting.
really, I love FSC. I love
Hmm.
what we stand for. It's honestly a really big, it's an honor to be the one defending this industry that I've
Yes.
spent my entire life in.
I'll be honest. When I heard you had taken over, first I was very happy. Okay. And second, I was kind of surprised because I'm like, I mean, Alison can do anything she wants in this industry. Why take over a nonprofit? But I'm sure your experience throughout your career, including what we talked about early in your career, where you realized what FSC was and what they did and how important they were, I'm sure that played into it.
100%. I mean, I came from when I was in college, of course, I was pretty politically active. I had been arrested in
Surprised.
hate
I'm really
protests in
surprised. I'm really
DC. I
surprised
know,
by that.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy, and it kind of, I never thought like, Alison, you sold out by just working in porn.
Yeah.
But there was also a part of me that was like, yeah, it'd be really cool if someday like you can make a difference for the industry.
Yeah.
So it was a
Absolutely.
no-brainer.
More power to you. More power to you. So nonprofits are a much different animal than for-profit companies. What were the biggest challenges you faced with the transition?
As it turns out, yeah, they're it's a really different animal.
Big
I was
time.
like, oh yeah, I ran kink.com. I can run FSC. And gosh, what isn't different? So, 50 employees or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there's some
It's a totally different
simplicity to
scale.
that too, of course.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. And I think that, understanding the impact of being a nonprofit, the different ways that, you have to run an organization than you did have to run a company, just from taxes. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not that hard to sell porn or sex toys, if we're being
Mm-hmm.
honest. People want those things.
Oh
You
yeah.
have to do a good job. You have to
Yes.
have good product. But
Yes.
frankly, it's a little harder to sell the idea of supporting the industry,
Oh
protecting our
yeah.
rights. So that I think was the biggest change. Like, okay, I'm not selling skin and pleasure. I'm selling your right to sell it.
Yes. Absolutely.
But I think being able to, having come from the perspective of being an FSC member and having donated and understanding, what it meant to go from early in my career being raided by the FBI to
Hmm.
what FSC did
Mm-hmm.
to where we all are now,
Yeah.
I have a personal story. I could sell it, and we're
Sure.
doing a
And
lot.
I'm sure being on the board also I'm sure being on the board also played into it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, had I been totally new to it, gosh, I'm not even. It'd be crazy to take this job. But after a few years of kind of watching it, getting close to my fellow board members, having been the treasurer of the organization, so super familiar with what the books look like, always an important consideration.
Oh yeah.
Um, I felt like, yeah, okay, we can make this work.
Absolutely. So beyond what you do at FSC, you're also president of Pineapple Supports Board, which, by the way, we are a proud sponsor of Pineapple Support. As I've said many, many times, I'm a huge advocate for anything that helps mental health. And that also plays
Mm-hmm.
into my life, that I've thought and used therapists and think the world of them. How did you get involved with them?
Well, big same. I I am so happy, or I was so happy back when, gosh, whatever year that was, when Leia decided she was going to try to start an
Mm-hmm.
organization
It's like 3
to.
years now.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Time
Yeah, I
flies,
know.
right?
I know.
And we happen to be in the same city because she lives in Spain and I happen to be in LA, and she was there at the same time, and we grabbed lunch, and she was like, "Look, I think I'm gonna start this nonprofit." And I was like, "That is the most amazing thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Um,
She's amazing.
can, can I help? Do you need it?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how I can help. And yeah, no, she's just extremely, extremely. I only really came to appreciate her. I definitely appreciated her before I had this job, but now
Yeah.
doing a similar thing, I'm like, holy crap, are you good at this? Like,
Mhm.
she has allowed that organization to serve thousands of
Yeah.
performers who
Right.
needed the help.
Think
And
about how
so
many lives that saved.
lives saved. It's just
Yep.
incredible. And
Yep.
she deserves all the credit in the world.
I agree.
Um,
I agree.
I can't believe how far it's come, even just in 3 years,
Yes.
from nothing to, coming up on 10,000 people
Jeez.
who've gotten help through Pineapple Support.
We promote it every chance we get on this podcast. I've had her on a couple times. I've had one of her therapists on. To me, it's just a phenomenon that is just so important to this industry.
Oh, incredibly. It's so important everywhere. And it's very sad to me that this isn't, the way every industry treats its workers,
Well,
giving them
here's the
access to help, or the US government even.
yeah, well, there's such a stigma, though. There's such a stigma about
Exactly.
mental health. And if you think there's a stigma in the US, try being in Thailand. Try being in
Oh,
another country that isn't as progressive. Well, I don't like to say the US is progressive anymore, but that can be as progressive as the US, that is progressive in some ways and in other ways going backward. But that's another story.
yeah. And I mean, even, being a sex worker in the United States makes it incredibly difficult to find a provider who isn't judging you. And, you
Right.
know, if you have access, it can be dicey. I've even had therapists who've been really weird to me because I was
Mhm.
on the business side. So, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Pineapple screening all these therapists, making sure that they like understand the issues and treat all of our, clients with respect. It's just, I can't thank you enough for the support, because the
Sure.
organization really needs it.
I
And
know.
it's wonderful. It's really great.
Well, our industry, as you know, and this is one of the goals of FSC, is to try to turn this around, but we get prejudice from every turn. But it's amazing we would get prejudice from therapists.
Right? It
I
seems
mean,
almost at odds with what therapists are supposed to do.
yeah, I'm sure they've got an oath and they're breaking it by that. So, oh well,
Yeah.
thank God for Leia and Pineapple support. That's all I can say. So,
Hmm.
I saw you at AVN and you were having meetings with various platforms. You were moving so fast it wasn't funny. Didn't even hardly get a chance to say hi. What do you see as the biggest issues facing the industry?
You know, I think that one of the issues that really came to the fore in the fall, when Wells Fargo decided to completely ban essentially
Hmm.
adult businesses and
Right.
workers from their, from their bank, it just made an issue that has always been simmering, like, oh, so and so lost a bank account, let's see if we can find them a new one. But it just really
Hmm.
brought to the fore how much discrimination
Right.
our industry faces
Yes.
from what is essentially a basic human right. Like, you have to
Hmm.
have access to the financial services
Hmm.
world in order to exist as a
Yes.
human.
Yep.
And that really galvanized me and made it really clear that that's an issue we need to tackle.
Yes.
I think, in addition, Louisiana passing its age verification law was just the most recent in a whole string of really bad age verification mandates
Yeah.
that we're going to have to deal with.
Sure.
It's happening. And so, getting our strategy proactively, I've been talking to a lot of the platforms about, look, what could work. Obviously, these suggestions that, like, websites need to use an official, I mean, LA Wallet is what the Louisiana legislature wants you to use. It's absurd. It's
Mm.
expensive. It's using someone's actual ID. I
Yep.
mean, we just, if you care about privacy, if you care
Right.
about like actually having customers tomorrow,
Yeah.
we we
Well, and
can't,
they know people will they know the vast majority of people won't do that because it's porn.
exactly. The whole point is to deprive adults of access to material that they have the constitutional right to view.
Yeah. It's
It's
just the First Amendment.
Yeah, just that. Just number
Yeah,
one.
huh.
So,
No big deal.
so tackling that really big issue, I think that we're already, making some strides there.
My broker tip today is part 1 on how to buy a site. The first question to ask yourself is, what kind of site would you like to buy? Would you like a tube site, a cam site, a dating site, a membership site, a social media site, or something else? If you want to buy a membership site, what type of membership site do you want and in what niche? There are literally hundreds of niches and many sub-niches. For instance, let's say you want to buy a gay site. Under gay, there's bears or mature, bareback, Asian, Latino, amateur, bi, black, Euro, and fetish, along with many fetishes under that classification. Plus, there's hardcore, jocks, porn stars, solo, trans, twinks, and uniforms. Straight has even more sub-niches. I can't tell you how many people contact me and just say, I want to buy a site, or I want to buy a pay site. I obviously need more information than that. How you make this decision should be based on these factors. What interests you? What you enjoy should definitely play a part in what you buy. Let's say you like men and want to make money on a straight site. That's probably a really bad idea. Same thing if you're straight and want to buy a gay site. So what you like plays a part. What's your budget? This is something you need to establish at the very beginning. Not only do you need to know what it is you're working with, but some classifications of sites are more expensive than others. For instance, if you want a cam site with any traffic or revenue at all, you're going to need a lot of money. In fact, to buy any established and successful site is going to be really expensive. If you buy a site that's pretty much just a platform without traffic or sales, you're going to need a huge investment to build it up. In that case, it might actually be as good or better just to start your own site. That way you get exactly what it is you're looking for. We'll talk about this subject more next week. And next week will be part 2 of our interview with Alison Boden. And that's it for this week's Adult Site Broker Talk. I'd once again like to thank my guest, Alison Boden. Talk to you again next week on Adult Site Broker Talk. I'm Bruce Friedman.